Welcome to the Two Dads, No Supervision podcast. I'm your host, Ian, with my co-host, Drew.
What's up? Woo!
Today, we're trying out a new format where we're going to have all of the categories that we cover under one podcast. Let us know how you like it. We will be releasing segments individually on YouTube, and we will also have chapters as well. So if you want to select a specific part, if you don't want to listen to our politics, but you want to hear about the Panthers, we'll make it easy for you to do that as well. As always, please let us know. We want to make the viewing as easy as possible for you and as enjoyable for you.
Yeah, the idea of this is that we'll be able to provide more content for everyone. Also, Ian and I are also kind of busy a little bit. I don't know about Ian, but we're both we're both dads and husbands, and this allows us. I'm a business owner. Ian's got a full-time job. Like this allows us to be able to record as much content as possible in a short amount of time, and then be able to give that to you in digestible ways that you all like. And then also to shout out my brother-in-law, Austin Hurt. He said, "Hey, I would really like long form podcasts because I'm in the truck a lot and I want to hear everything at once." And so this is for you, Austin. Love you, bro.
And for other people as well. We don't make a decision based off of one person, but we do think that this is going to end up being the best experience for you. If it's not, let us know. So, yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of dive into the politics. So what we're going to cover now is just some things that happened in the last week. I know there wasn't much that happened, but we're still going to cover that.
Week.
Right. On a serious note, there was an assassination attempt in Minnesota. Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and State Senator John Hoffman were targets of assassination attempts. Melissa and her husband were killed. The killer was targeting state Democrats. Our heart goes out to the Hortman and Hoffman families. Political violence has no place in America. And it's just truly a tragedy.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think it's disgusting that anyone, doesn't matter what side they're on, they rushed quickly to find out the political affiliation of the assassin and tried to make it some sort of campaign off of that. That's disgusting. There's no place for that at all. Like you said, political violence in general. That's not the United States of America. And so I hate the whole situation. Doesn't matter who is who. There shouldn't be any sort of assassination attempts of anyone. We have a nation founded on political discourse as our methodology of enacting change, not violence.
100%. The comments from prominent members of the right, like Donald Trump Jr. and Senator Mike Lee from Utah, which tried to blame the MAGA indoctrination on the left and say that this was a leftist that was hired by Tim Walz to kill people who disagree with him is disgusting. We know it was untrue, and we have to hold our senators, our lawmakers, and our prominent figures to a higher standard than we do a random Twitter user. It's not the same thing. Again, our hearts go out to both the Hoffman and the Hortman families.
Yeah. Tragic situation all around.
Another thing that happened was the No Kings protest. It was a huge success. It was the largest single day protest in our country's history. It ended with no violence. It was just Americans who care about America showing off their patriotism. It was so effective that Trump's only retort was to take to Truth Social and make a snarky remark saying that he isn't the king.
So I thought that was funny, Trump's thing. I was like, oh, thank goodness. I was worried about a king coming in. Phew. Good to know that I'll stay your president. Success is, it's a subjective term on this matter because I don't know what changes enacted, I think it's great that people got out. And I have seen only one video that seemed like, oh, that's a little chaotic. That shouldn't be like that. And I can't even remember what city it was in. Overall, it seems like peaceful and patriotic. Terrific. Whether I agree with the protest or not, I'm happy that this happened. And we were able to see nationwide people come together and present their view without burning buildings or rioting and looting and things like that. So that's a positive move for the United States.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there could be no demonization of what happened really shows that it was a win optically, and then also it is something that it was very popular with both independents, Democrats, and Republicans,
Mhm.
right? Whenever you see the American flag waving and people proud to be American and using their First Amendment, that is a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Supreme Court today ruled in favor of the state of Tennessee, saying that outlawing the use of medical transitioning for transgenders who are under the age of 18 is constitutional. It was a 6-3 ruling. They ruled because transgender are not a protected class under the law or a recognized protected class under the 15th Amendment, that it was not unconstitutional to create this law.
So just, yeah, it's obviously a crazy divisive subject right now. And I may not be 100% conservative on this. My thought process is if people are of sound mind and they want to make foolish decisions with their own bodies, let them. Where I am very conservative on this is we need to protect our children 100%. And you're not, the prefrontal cortex of your brain is not fully developed until around the age of 25. That's where you make a lot of your rational, logical based decisions. And so until around 25 years old, your emotions play a because of your amygdala forms quicker, your emotions play a greater role in your decision making process than they do once you reach that age of about 25 years old. And it varies on a person to person case. Major decisions like this should not be made by children. Life altering, life changing decisions should not be made by children. They should also not be made by predatory parents who are looking for social media likes and clicks for their children. That is abuse in my book. When you're making life altering decisions, changing the bodily function of your child because it fits within whatever world you want to create. I don't like that. I think the Supreme Court made the right decision to say, look, we can make laws to protect our children from this kind of life altering change. And we can allow them to get to an age where they're able to make decisions to do foolishness or however this is going to get me canceled, but allow them to get to a decision making age to be able to do that on their own. And then at that point, whatever they want to do, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, go for it.
Yeah. I think there were a few interesting things about the Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court case basically put into law that transgenderism is not a mental disorder and that it is different from body dysmorphia or gender dysmorphia, which is, I think, very impactful. I think people are overlooking this, but that is one of the reasons why they ruled the way that they did, is because under the law now, because of the Supreme Court, transgenderism is officially not a mental disorder. The other thing with it as well is that you can still get access to these drugs just under, for different reasons. So you may end up seeing, people with increased amount of headaches because they have a testosterone deficiency come through. But basically what they ruled is that it doesn't violate the 14th Amendment. They also said that there needs to be more studies and that the argument against this doesn't pass scrutiny as it pertains to the harm that it can provide. So this is something that can be changed down the line if we have the studies that show definitively that these steps are needed to reduce harm. But right now, the Supreme Court says that that argument doesn't pass scrutiny. The way that the law is written, the way that the fact that transgenderism is not a protected class under the 14th Amendment, the Supreme Court made the correct decision as it pertains to the Constitution. And that is my view on it, on the ruling itself. Maybe we can have a larger discussion on trans rights and trans topics in a later forum, but this is just kind of rapid fire, and we're just talking about the Supreme Court decision. In world news, Israel launched a highly effective strike on Iran. The strike ended up killing top nuclear scientists and military personnel. They caused significant damage to Iran's nuclear sites in Natanz and the underground centrifuge. Iran has retaliated with a barrage of ballistic missiles, killing 24 Israelis. The attacks come after it was reported that Iran had uranium that was 60% enriched. 90% enrichment is needed for a nuclear weapon, and reports estimated that Iran was just a few months away from that benchmark. This was the very thing that was going to be prevented by the JCPOA. Iran only started enriching their uranium and ignoring the international watchdogs after Trump pulled out of the deal in 2018. This is another example of Trump's reckless thoughts on foreign policy and his inability to negotiate on the world stage. And now it is bringing the U.S. back into a war in the Middle East.
Okay, so this is our rapid pace section. I think we do need to spend a full podcast episode discussion focus on this. No, Ian and I have been arguing about this in our offline messenger group. So the Obama-Iranian peace treaty fell short on a lot of areas. There was the sunset clauses that gave only temporary solutions to permanent problems. And then it did not cover things such as like ballistic missiles. And all of that aside, the JCPOA was still in act with Iran and Europe. Okay. And Iran immediately started ignoring that, enriching their uranium. They don't care. They're evil. And so that peace treaty needed to be changed. I think if I was president next year, I'm old enough, so start voting, Drew 2028. But if I were president, I would not have ripped out that peace treaty. I would have built a new peace treaty and then traded it out rather than just creating a vacuum without giving a solution yet. But that deal needed to be redone. All we were doing was funding their ability to enrich their uranium and build nuclear weapons once the sunset clauses came to fruition.
Yeah, so the point on the ballistic missiles, the treaty was not to demilitarize Iran. It was to keep them from having a nuclear weapon. And again, it looks like the MAGA party is realizing how much soft power the United States has in the world. Yes, when the United States pulls out of enforcing a treaty, the enforcement kind of goes away because the United States is the big bad dog on the block. So when you get rid of your soft power that you have, what ends up happening is Iran looks at Israel and says, okay, well, I'm going to start enriching my uranium, even if my goal isn't to create a nuclear weapon. I want them to think that it's a possibility, because then it gives me leverage. When the United States is enforcing things, there is no leverage there. You cannot have leverage against the United States. We have too much soft power. And we know that is the case because they didn't start disobeying the international watchdogs until the United States pulled out. I do agree with Drew that it needed to be extended. It was a 15-year treaty. And I do agree that even if you didn't like the treaty, you had to have something in place to build on top of. To just rip it up does not work. And again, this is Trump's MO. I'll go in, I'll rip it up, and then I'll figure it out afterwards. And he never ends up figuring it out.
That's putting
Speaking of which,
finality on
oh, go
something
ahead.
that wasn't given the full lifespan or option. So I don't know the whole deal as to why there wasn't a treaty ready to go in 2018. And honestly, I need to go back and look at that. But Trump doesn't always back out. Taco, it's a meme. It's not because if it was truly Trump always chickens out, then you guys wouldn't be so threatened by Trump. If he's always backing out, then what would you have to worry about? He's going to chicken out of whatever you don't like about him anyways. So clearly there's some weight to his words and some swiftness to his action, or else the left wouldn't be so threatened by him.
No, to be clear, it's not that we feel that he is going to back out. It is that he does not have a plan. He goes in and says something is terrible. We need to get rid of it. And then he just doesn't find a solution, right? Again, he has concepts of a plan. These are his own words, right? He's been trying to figure out a concept of a plan to replace Obamacare for almost 16 years, right? When he was negotiating the pullout of Afghanistan, he didn't even include the Afghan government. He worked directly with the Taliban and boxed the Afghan government out, and then just said, hey, we're just going to start pulling out people as quickly as possible, which we saw the end result of what happened, right? These are things that he does because, and you've said this many times, he's a bull in a, in a,
A China
in
shop,
a
yeah.
China shop, right? He's destructive. He does not create things, he just destroys things. When we're talking about diplomacy and everything else, we still don't have a better alternative to NATO. We still do not have a better agreement with Russia. We still don't have any of these things that he has promised by saying that the previous administrations have failed in this aspect. But again, this is something that we can debate in further in the future, but it is pretty intriguing to go into. But speaking of very bad policy and not being able to see the forefront, today we are going to go in depth around the beautiful bill, which
The big,
is
beautiful bill.
awful. Yes, it is a big hot mess. It is terrible. There are no redeeming qualities.
Okay. In 1,100 pages, nothing is redeeming.
I mean, we can go through it, but nothing is like substantial. In
Ian, you have fallen prey to the leftist media. So there's a lot of good stuff in this bill. There's some wild stuff in this bill. I'll state my opinion, and then we can debate as to what their thought process might be in certain things. My opinion is there's too much in this bill, way too much. Think you need to vote. I would love single issue bills. Anything else seems pretty deceptive, honestly. To say, okay, here's 1,100 pages, now vote on it, or you hate the common person who's paying too much in taxes. vote on this, or you want I don't know, like you want evil things to happen if you vote against this bill. Well, there's some stuff on there that should pass. There's some stuff that probably shouldn't pass, or at least should be discussed. But throwing it all into one giant bill, it's a bully tactic, and I don't like it. I don't like it, whoever puts it out there. We've had like the was the big Green Deal or whatever, the AOC Green Deal, where it was like thousands of pages as well. And it's like, come on, guys. That it's impossible to like you can't logically have each senator go through every page of that, fully comprehend everything that's going on, and then be able to put that into a binary vote of yes or no, pass or fail. Like it's deceptive at best, a bully tactic to try to push something like that. So I don't like that at all. I think it should be broken down into lots of little beautiful bills, or as Mr. Musk says, the slim beautiful bill. But that's my biggest issue at face value with it. Like the sweeping Medicaid costs or cuts on that. I think a lot of those things we are looking at extreme issues and putting a general stamp on it. We got to be careful with that. My biggest issue is that you're trying to lump 1,100 pages into a yes or no vote, and it's not fair to anybody.
Okay, so I get that you have like the procedural side of things that you have a complaint with, but um, in your mind, when you think of a fiscal bill, what would be a positive outcome of a fiscal bill?
Of course, we're talking about the budget deficit there, and I also agree. That's why it needs to be broken down into little pieces, because some stuff is ridiculous that we're adding, was it 1.5 trillion to the deficit there with like an immediate vote. That that's not wise. And I get, okay, Trump's mindset in this was, oh, Doge is going to cut $1 trillion, so if I add $1 trillion, then we break even. No. Just because you make up positive ground on something doesn't mean you automatically spend it. Now, it's a business mindset, using other people's money to get rich, using credit to get rich. And Trump's whole mindset on the budget deficit is, well, we'll build the economy to be strong enough so that the value of the dollar will be greater than the amount of debt that we have taken out. And so we don't have to worry about debt because debt will seem like it's less because the dollar is so valuable. That works in fairyland. It's not a tactic that you can trust people who have emotions to handle. So some people are successful in taking out large amounts of credit and then using that credit to purchase investments, and then using those investments to bring back more money than the amount of credit that they pulled out. It's a very small percentage of humanity that can actually handle that kind of transactional mindset. We can't do that as a nation because it puts us at great risk. And maybe one administration can handle that emotionally. You can't guarantee that the next 5 or 10 administrations will be able to handle that same kind of mindset. And you're setting yourself up for a disastrous collapse, especially when, was it the cows come calling home or whatever it is that the old colloquialism is, when you get caught and the emperor has no clothes, you're in trouble. And so I I don't agree with that philosophy of finances, especially on a national scale. But I believe that's what Trump's mindset is and his administration's mindset is in the deficit.
Yeah, so again, what would you view as a successful fiscal bill?
If we're speaking just fiscally, I'd love to save money for the common American and give them more dollars in their pockets. I'd love to cut that deficit because it is getting worse and worse. You've seen the scale. Let's put the scale up on the screen now, Ian, or whoever the editor is, where it's an upward, like a stark compound growth upward trend. I don't like that at all. That's terrifying because one of these days, those people we owe debt to are going to come back. We're paying more in interest than we are in our defense budget. And our defense budget is crazy overblown. So it's terrifying, that aspect of it. I do think fiscally we need to save money and we need to give more money to the American citizen and less to the government.
Okay. So you have two contradictions there, or two thoughts that are complete contradictions, right? Because you cannot have a reduction of the deficit while also lowering taxes. You can't.
Oh, really? Really, Ian? No, you can. Spend less money. Give less money to the government, more money to the American citizen, raise the value of the dollar. It's easy. You just flip the switch. Jerome Powell, I know you're watching. Just make it happen, dude.
Yeah, to be clear, it's just not possible, right? And that's why the Trump administration is not even trying to go through and make this a law. Instead they're using this as a reconciliation bill because they know that they cannot make sweeping cuts to the government. It's not possible. If you start making sweeping cuts to the government, you are just not going to be elected ever again. And that is
What
where
if the
we are
point
at.
isn't to be elected? What if the point's just to fix the government? So make the sweeping cuts. We have a bloated government system, and so it needs to be drastically reduced.
What part do you think is bloated?
We could talk about the US aid, AID. We could talk about the Department of Education. We could talk about all these extra curricular, extra governmental funded programs, NGOs that are receiving just massive benefits. We could talk about all sorts. If you want to go line item by line item, I'd have to get the research and break it down for you. But there are departments, whole departments that need to be cut. That if we just put control back into the hands of the common citizen and let the free market take care of itself, then they would do a much better job than the government, again, the most poorly run business in the world.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there. It's not the most poorly ran business in the world. One, because it isn't a business, and two, even if we grant that it is a business, which it's not, and I can disable that in one question, what is the purpose of a business?
To make money.
To maximize profits for their shareholders. What is the purpose of a government?
To make money. That's what they're doing, dude.
Well, no, they're not. They're running a deficit.
Yeah,
They
they're
aren't
living on
making
credit.
money.
They've maximized their business line of credit and they
If
keep raising that ceiling.
if they were in the business of profiting as much as possible, we wouldn't have one of the lowest tax rates in the world, right? We would be taxed at like 80-90% if that was their goal. That's not their goal, right? We can agree their goal is not to make as much profit as possible.
We can agree that their goal is not to keep as much money in the government as possible. It's to keep it in their pockets.
I mean, so the money comes in and then the money goes out to things, right? So if we're talking about the money going out to the Department of Education, where does the money go? The money goes to schools, right? So are the schools keeping it in their pocket? I mean, again, if we play these things out, right? What are we like? What do we end up talking about here? Because I know a lot of people say, man, people just get in the government and they end up making like a ton of money and that it's so corrupt, but they can't really point to a lot of corruption. When there is corruption, the system finds it and prosecutes that person. But by and large, it is not corrupt, right? You don't have, now you may have people who are in office for 45 years and we're like, why are they in office? But that's because they continue to get voted in. And it's typically because young people don't vote. Old people vote, right?
Yeah.
So old people are going to vote for who they are familiar with and they trust. They trust an old person. Oh, that person is wise. That person is blah, blah, blah. Right? So, but even if we say actually the government is a business, then we have to look at, okay, then the government is a business in the sector of governments. What other government in the world is better than us at anything?
I'm talking about, okay, well, you would have to ask your compatriots for that because they seem to really love the European government systems and the European government societies over there. But beyond that, I'm saying, as far as when I say worst run business in the world, it's obviously an extreme sarcasm there. It's a very poorly run business on a very large scale. And so the shortcomings are extremely clear and obvious because it's on a grander scale. My business is run worse than the government because my business makes money at the same. I'm running a deficit as well, Ian, but I'm not trying to compare our government to other governments on an international scale because some are worse, some are better in some regards, worse in other regards. And so it's hard to do a comparison and contrast on a full global scale. When I when I'm talking about the government being a poorly run business, I'm just saying in general, it's horribly run. And every government agency I've had to work with, blanket statement here, every government agency I've had to work with, and when I was in the sales capacity multiple times, and then I've also been around politicians. I'm related to people in the political sphere. It's bad. It's very poorly run all around. I'm I'm pro 1776. Give the power back to the people. No taxation without representation, and so forth.
Definitely, but we do have representation, right? People vote people in. There's nobody that's being taxed that is not represented, that doesn't have an opportunity to vote for representation outside of non-citizens, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying that I am. I was saying like we're getting taxed on stuff that we don't even know we're being taxed on. The taxes are not represented well,
I
and I don't like them. I don't like taxes, Ian. Stop taking my money, government.
so I just want to point out that different sectors of business, if we're even going to classify government as a business, which definitionally, I think we came to the understanding that definitionally government is not a business. But even if we
You came
move
to the
past
understanding.
definitions,
I have not yet.
even if even if we move past definitions, if we talk about sectors, right? You can look at Coca-Cola and you can compare it to Google, and you can say Coca-Cola is a very badly ran business, even though Coca-Cola has been in business for over 100 years. They are the best at what they do in that sector. The US government is the best at what it does in the world. There is not another country in the world that, if you're talking about giving power back to the people or opportunity back to the people, there's not another country in the world that people move to for opportunity more than the United States. There is not another country in the world where people can create wealth like the United States. There is not another country in the world that has the GDP output that we have. There is not another country. I can go down the list here.
Aren't we like fourth or fifth on the GDP?
No, we are first. We are first on the GDP. Now,
I'm
there
pretty
may be
sure the
like,
UAE is ranked higher than us.
that may be GDP per capita, and that may be skewed when you have a
Dubai.
very small country, right? But if we're talking about just the economic output that we have, No one comes close. No one has a stronger currency than us, even if Donald Trump wants to get rid of that. No one has the standard of living that we have from top to bottom that we have
Hmm.
matched with the opportunity. There is nowhere that you can say America is ran poorly in comparison to the other people in the sector. You just can't do it. Now, you can create something in your head and say, it would run better if we did these things. That may be, but that doesn't mean it's poorly ran. It is still the best. It is the creme de la creme, right? Of all the people in the world, of all the thought leaders, of all the amazing ideas in the world, of how to run countries, of how to run economies, of how to run everything else, the United States is still the best at it. Now, Drew, you may be the one person who is smarter than the rest of the 7 or 8 billion people in the world that can create a entirely different system and be like, yes, this runs better. But until that is proven, we cannot say that the government is a poorly ran business,
We
even if you
can.
think that it's a business.
I love the United States. It's the country I was born in. I am grateful for this country. I'm grateful for the founding principles of this nation, which have birthed a nation of prosperity and success and freedom and justice for all. We consistently rank low on things such as education and on crime rates and on the lower end of the poverty level. On quality of life, we are behind places like Denmark and Switzerland, and you can go on down the list. We are not number one at everything. That's an egocentric thing to say. But we have the best system, that the foundations that have been put in place of any nation that I can find. And I am grateful for our forefathers and the nation that they prayed about and built. I think we, ever since 1770, have been getting in our own way at times. And sometimes we're successful, sometimes we fail. But we can't say, hey, we're the best at everything and continue to put out in- incredulous, like, illiteracy rates among high school graduates, and to have our education system be a disaster. Our healthcare system, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's frustrating and a disaster. It's kind of interesting that the sector that the government has its hands in pretty heavily is such a major disaster. Again, whatever the government seems to stick its fingers in, it seems to ruin. And back when it was a nation of the people, by the people, for the people, it was when we built those great foundations for a prosperous nation that we have today. I do want to make sure we don't get distracted. We are trying to talk about the big, beautiful bill here. And
Right.
the idea is, look, there are some redeeming qualities, in my opinion. I know you don't think we should have the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. I'll say overtime is controversial for me, but until restaurants can start paying their workers what they should be paying their workers, I hate that they skirt around the minimum wage laws and say, well, if you can get tips enough to cover those minimum wage benefits and reach that threshold, then we don't have to pay you more than $2 or $3 an hour. That's disgusting. But until we enforce that, and I get the margins. So I've looked into the restaurant business. When I was starting my own business, I looked into that. The margins in food are horrible. It's a really tough business. The only way to actually succeed in a restaurant business is to have like 5 locations that are full consistently, and then finally you start seeing like legitimate major profits on that. Other than that, you're making pennies on each head, and it's a really high risk, high reward scenario. But there are multiple issues with that. I do think the no tax on tips, it helps the lower class individuals who are having to work those service paid or service wage jobs. And it ultimately builds a better economy. Anywhere where we can cut taxes. That's a big part of this BBB, the big beautiful bill, not the other BBB, but the big beautiful bill is it's permanently extending those Trump tax cuts, which have been great for the middle class. They have, and
They have
they
not.
Trump tax cuts, they've been great for small business. They've been great for the middle class. And so those kind of things have been, those are, in my opinion, some of the redeeming qualities. I like being able to give the salt deduction and loosening that to the 40K for filing jointly. I'll be honest, I'm on the fence about this. What is it, the MAGA account or whatever? I don't remember what they're calling it, but where kids get $1,000 for what is that, Ian? Is that like some sort of investment fund that a trust that they can't touch until they're 18 or something? I don't like the government having to take money from us so that they could then give money back to us. I'd rather us just have the money and not let the government touch it at all.
Yeah, I mean, what it is, it's a one time $1,000 basically into a brokerage account that would just follow like the S&P 500 or something in the United States, so that everybody in the United States has skin in the game as it comes to our economy. Because one of the biggest critiques is that the stock market isn't the economy and that only rich people own stocks. So this is a way to even the playing field so that everybody over time is going to own stocks and benefit from the economy growing. That's the thought process. If we go into the actual bill, the problem is the tax cuts. The tax cuts are specifically for the wealthy, which I have to say it will help me. I end up benefiting from this a lot. Um, Now, everybody else, they don't. The bottom 80% of the population ends up with less money than they did before the bill. And that's because of cuts to programs. And that's also because you're going to end up with higher interest rates. You're going to end up with less economic opportunities. And then also, you're going to have the tariffs as well, which is just a tax on the common. All it is a tax on the common person. But
Explain.
just to put this in just to put this in retrospect. So it's estimated that the bill will add $3 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years and $15 trillion over the next 30, just as it is written. If the bill is made permanent, like they're trying to do with the tax cuts, because let's remember, when Trump said, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and do this," this is not permanent. This is going to be sunsetted. This is just for the moment. And they had to say that because if it is something that's permanent, you can't go through reconciliation to get it passed. So they were lying there. Like we'll just a spade. They were lying. But if they do make it permanent, it will add $31 trillion to the debt in the next 30 years. And if the interest rates stay similar to what they are right now, and Jerome Powell today said, "I'm not lowering interest rates because while the economy is slowing down, inflation is rising faster than the economy slowing down." So if interest rates stay similar to where they are right now, it would add $54 trillion to the national debt. That means the deficit would be around 12% of GDP in the next 30 years. There is no justification for this. You just cannot, right? And I get all the time, "Hey, Trump is just doing what we voted him to do." I want Republicans, I want the MAGA party to go on record and say, if the bill is passed, that we elected him to increase the deficit and the debt exponentially. There's just no justification for it because, again, at the end of the day, national debt comes down to two things, right? It comes with your inputs and your outputs. They're not cutting the outputs. They're cutting a little bit of the outputs, but they can't meaningfully cut outputs unless if it is actual law being changed. It's not a reconciliation bill. Mm-hmm. That will never happen. It just won't because it's unpopular. Because the American people actually like what the government provides for them, right? If you tell them we're going to cut Social Security, you're done for. If you tell them, hey, we're going to cut Medicare, you're done for. If you tell them, hey, we're going to cut our military out, you're done for. Those are not popular things, right? Because actually what the government provides ends up being popular because it helps people. So you're not cutting the outputs, but you're greatly reducing the inputs. So what's going to happen? You're going to increase the deficit. We know that you don't outgrow from tax cuts. We know this because the largest debt that we've accumulated came under Donald Trump and his tax cuts, and it came under George Bush and his tax cuts. Donald Trump spent more than every other president in history, right? So again, if the MAGA party wants to say, yes, we voted for Donald Trump because we knew that he was going to spend more than everybody else and he was going to make us bankrupt, great. Own it. That's perfect. But if that is not something that you voted Donald Trump for, if you thought, hey, Donald Trump is going to fix the deficit, he's going to reduce the debt, and he's going to make our country stronger, then you have to oppose this bill. This isn't an ideological thing. These are the numbers of what the bill does and the outcome that you want for the country.
So you are...
If I gave you this bill and I said, hey, this is the Green New Deal mega bill, right? And I said that it was written by Kamala. Every single MAGA person would look at this and there's no way I'm voting for this. This is the biggest load of crap I've ever seen.
Yeah, but that is... Yeah, that's a different issue altogether. It doesn't matter what the contents of the bill are. If the author is someone on the other side of the aisle, then it's automatically going to be garbage. So this is partly what we're doing here is we're trying to combat that, where we can just have honest discourse and try to reach across the aisle, listen to one another and converse rather than like, oh, Ian thinks this, well, it's wrong then, no matter what, because Ian's a dookie head. That's the dad way of trash talking. That I believe is the case no matter what. Whatever agenda a president wants to push, when Obama was pushing for immigration reform and for mass deportation, then the Democrats were all for it. Yeah, let's do that. And then Trump does it. Oh, I can't believe he's such an inhumane monster out there trying to just take away all these illegal immigrants. And so it doesn't matter what the contents of the bill are. If the other side of the aisle writes it, then they're not going to like it. That's just the way it goes. On this, okay, I agree. We got to be careful with the deficit. It's horrible. It's in a disastrous mode right now. That's why Elon had his little online temper tantrum the other day, where he was calling Trump a pedophile and all that. It's because the bill has some tough elements to it. I do believe you are quoting alarmist numbers where like these are the extreme worst case scenario outcomes to this, and you're not taking in other factors of things that will change or should change. On this is Drew, extremist Drew here. I do think we need to make major cuts on government social programs. I think we are wasting a lot of money, and it's never going to be popular to do that because the people who are getting the benefits are never going to vote for their benefits to be taken away. It's just the way human nature works. If the government is giving me $1,500 a month, I'm not going to say, no, stop it, please. Like, I could use the $1,500 a month benefits of whatever it is. But if we take a step back and look at the country as a whole, maybe giving Drew $1,500 a month is not the best thing for our nation. And honestly, it's not the best thing for Drew in the long run.
Technical difficulties.
So, Ian, on the great point you made that I am the one person out of the 8 billion people on Earth that is more intelligent and knows how to run a government system perfectly, I commend you. Good job. You are right on that. Everything else, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no. So I asked you in the beginning of this, what do you think makes a successful fiscal bill? I'll tell you what I think makes a successful fiscal bill. I think something that promotes growth and that also puts us in the position to be successful in the future. So we know that moving forward, AI is going to be something that is going to be very important for us. Automation is going to change a lot of the way that things are built and the way that systems run. When automation comes in, what happens is the people who have the lowest cost of energy will win out because you don't have to worry about the difference in pay rates or anything else. Robots, you're just talking about like kilowatts per hour, how much money that is going to cost you to run your factories, so on and so forth. One of the biggest issues that I have with this bill is it takes away the tax incentives for our energy industry. So there's no initiative to grow solar, wind, nuclear, or geothermal energy. And not only does that impact us long term for the AI stuff and the automation stuff, but what it does is it raises your electricity bill. They estimate that once this comes in, once they repeal these tax credits, Americans are going to see a 7% increase in their electricity bill. But that varies state to state. And I looked yours up, Drew. In the state of South Carolina, you're going to see an 11% increase to your electricity bill, which isn't putting money back into your hands, which was one of your criteria of a good fiscal bill. The Department of Energy Secretary Chris Wright said that the bill will kill the nuclear and geothermal industries. Nuclear and geothermal is what we need to develop so that we can stay competitive 50, 60, 70, 100 years from now. Because fossil fuel is too expensive. Coal is too expensive. Nuclear and geothermal, once you actually harness this energy, it ends up being so cost effective. So not only does this bill raise the national debt, but it also puts a huge hindrance on our energy policies and our innovation. The other thing, you talked about it a little bit there, the bill aims to cut about $800 billion of funding to Medicaid. The CBO estimates that it will lead to almost 17 million people losing their health insurance. They also estimate that it will lead to the closure of 350 to 700 rural hospitals. Again, this bill negatively affects people in red states much more than it does in blue states, because people in red states use Medicaid the most. People in red states will lose their local hospitals in rural area. California is going to be able to foot the bill. They'll be fine. South Carolina, Oklahoma, Wyoming, those are the people that are going to end up being harmed the most from this bill when we talk about healthcare wise. So I want people to understand, yes, no tax on tips, which actually expires in 2028. So it's only there for 2 years. No tax on overtime, only there for 2 years. You're trading those instances for upwards to $54 trillion in debt, 700 rural hospitals closing down, and the United States losing its advantage on the world stage because we'll have higher interest rates. More of our GDP will be going to just paying the deficit, and we will be behind the other global superpowers in energy when it matters most, when the cost of energy is the most important factor for prosperity. We will be behind. And that's what this bill does. I've read the studies on this. When you actually present the bill to anybody, 63% of the people say that this bill sucks. It doesn't matter if you are Republican, independent, or Democrat. The problem is people just don't know what this bill does. So that's what I'm doing here is I want to give you the facts. The facts is that this bill is not a big, beautiful bill. It is a big, beautiful mess. But I don't want that for you, and I don't want that for the American people.
Yeah, I'm sure we can go back and forth on this quite a bit. That's why I, again, at the top of this segment said, look, it needs to be broken down into idea by idea, section by section, and vote not on one big, beautiful bill, but on lots of many little, beautiful bills and pass the things that need to be passed, cut the things that are going to make things worse for us. That's really the way, if I were running the government, that's the way that all of it would go. As you just look at one subject at a time, one bill at a time, and in that bill it's one topic, and like vote on that. And those single issue bills would still have enough conjecture over it to make being a senator entertaining. Okay, you don't have to cram 1,100 pages into one bill. That's ridiculous.
I am glad that Drew agrees that this bill sucks. Now, he may not agree that there's no redeeming qualities and that there are some things that we should have single issue votes on, but by and large, the effects of this bill are terrible. Again, if you have a car that does not run, does not turn over, but the tires on it are still good, that doesn't make the car good. That means that you can use the tires effectively elsewhere. And that is what Drew is saying. There may be some good tires in here, but you're working with a lemon. Let the lemon go and let's find the good tread on the tires and use those. And that I can agree with.
When life gives you lemonade, make lemons.
Great. So this was a lot of back and forth conjecture. I know this was a little bit more contentious than we usually do things, but I think that is important. I've said this before. Sometimes in order to find the truth, you have to make the conversations uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean that we're not friends. But one of the things that we want to do as well is we want to hold ourselves accountable and we want to hold our political parties accountable as well. So in this segment, we're actually going to go over one thing that we have a critique on of our party. So Drew, would you like to start?
Sure. And I'll just add this, like, if Ian starts admitting things about the Democratic Party that I'm like, yeah, that stinks, I'm not going to pile on because he's already seeing the issue. And so I think that way we can just really we're finding common ground and saying, look, I wish we could do this better. For me, the Republican Party as a whole tends to ignore the individual and focus on pragmatic outcomes. And I wish there was more concern for the individual than for the entirety. I think we need to have a concern for the entirety of the nation, but we can't ignore the individuals. I think an infusion of compassion would be the best way to word this. We need to care for our nation as a whole, but we need to have compassion for those who are affected and hurt by the sweeping changes that are made. And so that's like a 50,000-foot view of my gripe with the Republicans.
Yeah. My critique with the Democrats is that they don't want to win. They don't like to play politics. If you are a Democrat and you say, hey, I'm leaving the left and I support Donald Trump, the MAGA party will support you like you've been the strongest MAGA person ever. And that's because that's another vote for them so that they can win. The Democratic Party is not that way. There's so many purity tests that go on that the focus for the Democratic Party, at least to me, is not to win elections, but it is to feel like they have a moral high ground, which ends up leading to the inability to actually organize and the inability to cut through a lot of the mess and just win elections.
Okay, all right. Ian, now let's get to the most important thing we're going to talk about today, the Carolina Panthers. Man, I thought I could turn around. Bummer. All right. I'm going to bring up our rapid pace headlines of the day. So, first thing I want to talk about real quickly, Cam Newton just called out Dak Prescott about 5 hours ago, saying that if he does not get to the NFC Championship game this year, he's gone. And the Dallas Cowboys are in line to draft Arch Manning, since Arch doesn't want to have to move out of Texas, I guess. And so I don't know how that's going to be possible unless Dak just gets injured at the very beginning of the year and CeeDee Lamb gets injured and all they do is Brian Schottenheimer wants to run the ball with, who is it, Javonte Williams right now, who hasn't been healthy for 3 years. So I don't know, because that'd be a lot that the Cowboys are going to have to give up for what is perceived as a generational talent. And currently the Heisman favorite, even though he's barely played any football at all. So this is all major conjecture, but I do think there is a very strong possibility that this is Dak's last season with the Cowboys. What do you think?
I agree. I think that with any quarterback, there's windows and that you build around them for windows. They built around him a great offensive line. They gave him Ezekiel Elliott. They had a very good defense at one point as well, and they couldn't get it done when, like, in that window. Right. So if you're not going to continue to show the success that you need, you have the young pieces there. You have Micah Parsons, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have a lot of these other things that are going to be beneficial long term that you can build around. But Dak may not be the person that gets you there. And I do agree that this may be that year where it's like, hey, you have to get us over the hump, or it's not even worth us like continuing this, right? You're talking about the Washington Reds or the Washington Commanders making the making the playoffs last year with a rookie quarterback, and their trajectory looks like it's just going up. You have the Philadelphia Eagles who won the Super Bowl. Yeah, you have the Giants who still don't look very good, but
don't worry about
the
that.
The point is you used to run the NFC East.
Yeah.
Now you're third.
Yeah, that
right?
was 20 years ago.
Well, I mean, even with Dak Prescott, they won the NFC East quite a bit too. They just couldn't win playoff games, right? So I don't know if it's a coaching thing, more than it is a Dak Prescott thing. But at the end of the day, when you are the quarterback, you are going to have to be accountable for a lot of things that may be out of your control.
So Dak's
And if you
on
can't get over the hump, if you cannot get over the hump at some point, they're going to have to move on. And I think contract wise, it makes sense for them to move on at the end of the year.
So I believe Dak is on his fourth head coach at this point, and so that it can't be a coaching thing. Dak's career compares pretty well to Kirk Cousins, who is now the backup, the very well paid backup for the Atlanta Falcons. Jair Alexander, we talked about him in our last episode. Jair, you broke our hearts, man. He has signed with the Baltimore Ravens to team up with his old college buddy, Lamar Jackson, some scrub who plays quarterback for the Ravens. Reportedly, the Carolina Panthers offered more money for Jair than the Ravens, but Jair decided to go with his old friend. Loyalties, man.
Well, I mean, honestly, that makes sense to me. I think the Ravens have been such a well-ran
Yeah.
organization for what, the last 20, 30 years. You have Lamar Jackson there. You have a very good defense. That defense was very good by the end of the year. I would go there. But I get it. I understand it. It just sucks that he's not going to get a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
But J.C. Horn is going to get 5.
Yeah. At
Because
least.
again, Carolina Panthers, next 5 years, 5 Super Bowls. Bryce Young, 5 MVPs. It's going to happen.
It's already decided. Yeah, no, I get it. I get why Jair went there. Makes sense in every aspect except the financial aspect. And when you're in it for legacy and you're in it for the game, then I get it. So, no hard feelings, Jair. You hurt me, but good luck there in Baltimore. It'll be great to see you make deep playoff runs and then lose. Multiple rumors are circulating the interwebs about Justin Simmons and the Carolina Panthers having contract conversations. Now, as of right now, I believe it was Sheena Quick who said there is nothing imminent yet, but they are having conversations. If you look at the Carolina Panthers roster, one of the gaping holes in our secondary is the free safety slot. And so Justin Simmons would be a great spot. He played well for the Broncos for a while, and he's a little bit older, 31, but he would still be a sure thing in that secondary. Right now, we're slotted to have either Damani Richardson or Lathan Ransom. One is a late round pick, or one is an undrafted free agent rookie from the year before. Both of those guys show solid potential, but they are not Justin Simmons, and they won't be Justin Simmons for at least a couple of years. And so this is something that would give us an instant boost to our secondary.
Yeah, whenever you can upgrade the roster, you should upgrade the roster. I think this is a no-brainer. If you are going to really say we're serious about football, then when you have opportunities to upgrade the roster, you go after it. Justin Simmons is a great safety. Adding him to the secondary really changes our defense, and it actually makes me a lot more comfortable with this defense going into the season, which is crazy because last year we finished as the worst defense in the history of the NFL. So the things that we've been able to do over this offseason, and then being able to add another part to that in Justin Simmons, would really be such a huge win for Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, as we're really trying to build for the future and take advantage of the rookie contract that Bryce Young is under. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, Justin,
get the job done, Tepper.
Yeah. Justin, just tell us which college teammate you want us to sign to our roster to get you to come here. We'll do it, okay? I'm speaking for Dan Morgan, David Tepper, Dave Canals. I'm speaking for all of them. Just tell us we need you, okay? Next, rapid pace subject. Mitchell Evans, the 5th-round rookie tight end that the Carolina Panthers have drafted this year, is now getting comparisons to Rob Gronkowski. You know why? Because he is big and white. And so there is our Gronk. What do you think?
I think that there was a certain wide receiver that we had back in the day. His last name was Bryant. Um, and he had comparisons to Megatron because he was 6'4". He could run a 4.3 40. And guess what? He never played. I don't even remember his first name. I do remember the comparisons though. He just didn't play, right? So like these comparisons are fun as we get into like the first bit of football for these rookies and everything else. But look, at this point, he may be closer to me than he is to Gronk.
That's not to say we're not rooting for you, Mitch.
Sorry.
To you or to Mitch?
Mitch. That's it's the Brian Scalabrine thing, right? Brian Scalabrine is closer to LeBron than I am to Brian Scalabrine,
Yeah.
right? I understand that. I don't mean to say anything bad about Mitchell Evans, but Gronk is one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game. We can cool the comparisons. Can he just be like a Mark Andrews or like a Heath Evans, or can we do that first? Can we compare him to Greg Olson first before we compare him to Gronkowski?
Look, if he's Juwan Johnson,
Wesley
I'll be
Walls,
happy.
Juwan Johnson, Brandon Williams, Swole Bones. Compare him to those first.
As long as he's like Chris Manhertz, Mitchell Evans, like anything above Manhertz, I'll be happy. Anything below, I'll be like, whatever.
You mean Martinez?
Huh? Yeah, Chris Martinez. All right. Scandal. The Carolina Panthers social media team released a cryptic message on X recently with 4 claw marks, and people started conjecturing, oh, does this mean new uniforms? Oh, what does this mean? What's happening? And then they released a video that is, honestly, it's a hype video. I don't know if we want to play that now or not. Are we allowed to play that? That's not our video. Carolina Panthers, so media video. You could look at it, search it up there or something. And the video talks about a slogan, a marketing slogan called Leave Our Mark. And now it has spawned wild speculation that the Carolina Panthers are planning on replacing the franchise mantra of keep pounding with Leave Our Mark. If you watch the video, at the very end of that video, you hear the crowd chanting, keep pounding, keep pound. It's not going away. We're not trying to change the mantra. It is a marketing slogan to get people excited about the Carolina Panthers and this season. There's a lot to be excited about. It's just, in my opinion, that's what we're doing. We're just hyping the crowd up, and Panthers Twitter needs to cool it. Okay, chill out, guys.
Yeah, I didn't really understand the scandal when you explained it to me. Like obviously the motto of the Carolina Panthers is going to continue to be keep pounding, but there are like in-season chants and in-season mottos that people have, whether it's 1 inch at a time or day after day or don't beat ourselves. That one didn't really work very well, Matt Rule. You're going to have in-season hype that's supposed to bring that group of people together and have it different than the rest of the entire franchise. Keep pounding was never going anywhere. I didn't understand. I was mad because I wanted new uniforms. I was like, hey, great, we're getting new uniforms. This is going to be amazing. I can't wait to waste my money on this. And then it was just a hype video that was not even as good as
There's a lot of nothing.
Yeah, the hype video wasn't as good as the hype video that my Washington Huskies put out all the time. So that's what I was disappointed in, is the lack of hype in the hype video.
And so at this time of the season, most of the conversation is centered around speculation, wild rumors, and people who are just too bored. And so they have to come up with things like, oh, they're getting rid of keep pounding. I can't believe Tepper. He's the worst. Don't. That's how all Panthers Twitter sounds when they talk. It's kind of like a mix of Kermit and some Sesame Street character in my mind.
So I do want to point out we do not want to be the topic of Panthers Twitter. Panthers Twitter, you guys
You're the
are
best.
relentless. You guys are amazing. And whenever someone is the topic of the day on Panthers Twitter, it is hell for them. Do not come after us. I have love for you guys. I have participated in taking down a lot of people with you. I am with you. Drew may give you weird voices, but that's not me. Protect me. Please protect me.
Ian is a precious flower, but I'm not scared. Come at me. Come at me, Twitter. No. No, I'm part of Panthers Twitter. I get caught up in the hype too sometimes. I get it. I understand. Especially when we're in the part of the football year where like mini camp's done, waiting on training camp to get started. Like, what are we going to talk about? So let's make stuff up so that we still have the drama going. With speculation on the brain, Ian, what do you think about our upcoming season? And we can go ahead and throw up our schedule right here. What do you think we're looking at?
I've already given my prediction for the next 5 years, so I'm covered there. I see us being 9-8, 10-7. I think we end up getting into the playoffs, and then I think that we're a dangerous team in the playoffs. I think that our offensive line really helps us out. I think that the fact that we're so young on both offense and defense, I am projecting that we may have a roller coaster of a start where there's going to be some really good games and there's going to be some really like, but I rooting for this damn team game. But I think by the end of the year, these guys are going to start to gel. I think that the defense is going to be playing much better than in the beginning of the year. And I think once we get into the playoffs, we are going to be a dangerous team. That's just a prediction because I don't even know how they're going to start. So that's how I view it.
I feel like we can start off pretty hot on this. We're facing the Jaguars opening week, and then going to Arizona.
Those are
Both
two
of those,
really tough matchups.
huh?
The Jaguars are very respected in the NFL. The Arizona Cardinals, as you know, they have the best Call of Duty player in the NFL.
That's
I
true.
don't know how we beat those guys.
Yeah.
I think those are wins.
Yeah, unless Travis Hunter is an instant Hall of Fame player that everyone's projecting him to be, like I think their wide receivers, the Jaguars, the wide receivers will give us trouble because J.C. Horn can only guard one man at a time. And so they have a respectable receiving core. They are with a new coach. They have Trevor, who has been up and down. So I don't know. I do think that's a very winnable game. Arizona, very winnable game. Then we go, finally, our first home game is in week 3, which is irritating. But our first home game against the Atlanta Falcons. Ian, remind me, what happened the last time we played the Atlanta Falcons with poor little old horrible Bryce Young?
I don't know. I'm scared to face the Atlanta Falcons. I think Michael Penix is going to have an amazing year. So that is going to be a good game. But the last time we played them, we beat them. So if recent history tells us anything, we should be okay. But
they're going to be a fun team to watch.
Michael Penix scares me.
They will be a fun team to watch. They'll be more fun when they build up tons of fantasy points with Bijan Robinson and all those guys and then lose. That would be my favorite part of watching their games. I still think that's a very winnable game. I know it's a winnable game. We'll probably split our division games. It's typically how things go. Division games are always a different level of difficulty. So I think our first home game against the Atlanta Falcons, we have a good chance there. Then we go to New England. I am a Drake May believer. I think Drake May is a good quarterback. I think he has a horrible receiving situation, and they did not help him much at all this offseason. I know they drafted a couple of guys, but they were not the ideal picks in those situations. So I think Vrabel is a good coach. I know Vrabel's a good coach, and I think Drake May is a good quarterback. I'm also a Carolina guy, so go Tar Heels. So I am a believer in what they are looking to build. I don't think it's going to be there this season. I think they're a season or two away. Then we go to Miami, and Miami was a hot mess last year. Doesn't mean they will be this year. I still believe in Mike McDaniels as a coach, but who knows what Miami team will show up. Then it's the Cowboys. That's a tough game any year. As much as I dislike the Cowboys, they are always competitive to a degree. Then what are we looking at? Is that the Jets? Ooh, trash. The Jets will never be a good team. It doesn't matter how much talent they add. It doesn't matter who their coach is. Jets are trash. Sorry, Jets fans. Trash. Buffalo
Yeah,
Bills. Go ahead.
I have a coworker that is a huge Jets fan, and let me just tell you, I don't apologize. The Jets are trash. The Jets are never going to win anything, and that's coming from a Carolina Panther fan. So yeah, that's an automatic W there.
Yeah. Trash. The Buffalo Bills, not an automatic W. They're a tough team. We will probably lose that one, depending on how things go. The Green Bay Packers, I think they are a fun team to watch. I think they're slightly overrated because of the legacy of Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Jordan Love.
Yeah, is that a home game or an away game?
The Packers is away.
And that's end of November, December?
Beginning November 2nd. So just barely
Okay.
into November. It's not going to be, it shouldn't be super cold. I'm not a weatherman, but we should still have decent autumn weather at that point.
Yeah, I don't know if we win that game. So
Yeah.
just being honest.
No, I think I think they're slightly overrated. I think they're a good team. It really just depends. They're a hard one for me to predict at times. I do think Jordan Love is a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's terrible. And I think the Packers organization has polarizing opinions about them. I think they are better than average, and they do some things really, really well. They have an interesting structure to their wide receiver room. Doesn't make much sense. Seems to work for them. They have too many tight ends, too many receivers, but good on them because their offense is still somewhat exciting. After the
Yeah,
Packers, November 9th, we host the New Orleans Saints. They're trash. Then we go to Atlanta for the Atlanta Falcons Michael Penix revenge game, and we'll see how that goes. Then we have the heartbreaker game, Monday Night Football in San Francisco or Santa Clara or wherever the 49ers are now. Um, they're they're just they they're a well-rounded team. And they have Christian McCaffrey, the greatest.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah. Man, I hope so. I'm a Christian McCaffrey fan. He could go to the Cowboys. I would still be a fan of Christian McCaffrey, and I would just hate whenever he wins. But C-Mac, you're my dog. Am I allowed to say that? I said it.
I'm a big fan of Michael Penix, and that is a rival. So
Yeah, yeah, it's true. LA Rams, we will be hosting them November 30th. That will be a tough game. They have a gazillion receivers, and we have one cornerback, one and a half cornerbacks. And that one cornerback probably will be injured by that time of the year. So they will probably throw and run all over us, depending on how well our run defense is holding up at that point. We added a ton to the run D this year, so I don't know. Then we have a bye week, week 14, week 15. We go to New Orleans December 14th for a 425 game. Week 16, I hate when they do this, but week 16, we host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then we host the Seattle Seahawks the next week on week 17. Then we go to Tampa. So we play Tampa twice in a 3 week period. I think we'll split those games. I think we beat the Saints both games. We'll probably split the Falcons games.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, in my opinion, 11 wins. Worst case scenario, okay, worst case scenario is we don't win anything. Everyone gets injured week one, quarter one. But realistic worst case scenario is probably 4 or 5 games. I think the middle of the road, the most likely outcome, we are in the 7 to 9 win range. And we are a wild card seed contending for the NFC South. And I think we make the playoffs this year, especially if we start off hot. We honestly have a realistic possibility of going 5 and to start the season. Not saying it's a probability, but it is a strong possibility that it could happen. And if we start off 5-0, then momentum is going to carry us a long ways in the season, which is the way it worked in 2015 for us. If you go back, Cam Newton did not play well the first 3 weeks. Our offense was not gelling the first 3 weeks, but we won those games. Honestly, Josh Norman was a major factor in that. We won those first few games and we got on a roll, and momentum built and built and built and carried us. And then suddenly we had this behemoth of a team that was just steamrolling opponents throughout the season and toying with their emotions, giving them chances to come back, and then saying, no, sit down, little child. We are the Panthers.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you on the floor. This is a 6 or 7 win team floor. Just looking at the schedule. If you end up with 4 or 5 wins, it means that you're moving on from Bryce Young. It means that Dave Canales is getting fired. It means that everything that you've built
Rip the Band-Aid off and start over.
Right. Yeah, this is not a 4 or 5 team floor, especially with this schedule. I think 7 wins really should be like the minimum expectation for Panthers fans. If we don't at least get 7 wins, there should be riots in the streets, and we should be getting David Tepper out of Charlotte. I'm sorry, forcing a sell.
I hate to tell you,
would be
Tepper's not going anywhere.
Look, there's many things that we can do to get an owner to sell. We can be creative, and I trust that we can be creative here. But yeah, 7 wins is like the minimum expectation for this team, especially when you look at that schedule. Right, this is a weak division. Tampa Bay is good. They're not great. The Falcons are good. They're not great. The Saints are terrible. You are playing against the Jaguars. You're playing against the Cardinals. None of these teams are automatic goals, right? A lot of these teams you should either be competitive in or you should be the favors in.
What about the Bills?
Ones that the Bills we're not fair. The Bills are going to beat us. Like if we're just being objective, I mean the Bills were, a pass or two away from being in the Super Bowl last year, right? So yes, the Bills are going to beat us. Like that should be the expectation going in. We are underdogs there. Can we beat them? Sure, but if we're just being honest with our projections, we lose to the Bills. I think that we lose to the Packers as well, because I think that Jordan Love is really great against undisciplined defenses. And when you look at such a young defense, you can project that there's going to be some undisciplined stuff that happens in there, whether it is our edge rushers,
it will be week
rushing
9
past the.
By that point,
I mean, it's still. it'll still be, they're rookies, right? It's still a work in progress, right? You know, whether it's like over rushing or not really staying in your lanes and allowing Jordan Love to break contain. And once Jordan Love breaks contain and he can either run with the ball or he's outside in the pocket and he can make plays downfield, that's when you really get into a lot of issues, right? So I'll chalk that up as like two of the losses that I would probably expect. And then you talk about the division games can always go either way,
Yeah.
just because there's so much information that each team knows about each other. There's so much passion that goes into it. So those will go either way. But again, our expectation should be at least 7 wins for
Yeah,
like
I completely agree with you.
minimum. Yeah. And then for me, I still think that this is probably a 10-win team. I think that they end up getting into the playoffs. I don't know if they win the division. That'll come down to the last 3 weeks. And I think the NFL schedulers knew that, right? And that's why they scheduled us with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 2 of the last 3 weeks there, because we will be playing for the division. I think at least we get a wild card. And again, we may end up losing more games down the stretch, but I think we end up playing better football down the stretch, if that makes any sense. Because I don't think that you have to play great football to beat the Jaguars.
No.
I don't think you have to play great football to beat the Cardinals, but you do have to play great football to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when the playoffs are on the line, right? And you may even still play great football and it just doesn't end up being successful. But again, I think that we will have we'll make our marks along the way, but we'll also have to lick a few wounds. But once we get into the playoffs, I think that we are going to be a very dangerous team.
Well, Ian, I love talking Panthers and football with you. Let's move on to parenting.
Uh-oh. Stinky.
So, Drew, this last week of parenting, what stood out to you? Was there anything that you learned, or was there just a moment there that you were like, "Oh my gosh, this is what parenting is about"?
First of all, Ian, nice shirt. I really like it. Definitely love that it's been consistent throughout this whole episode. Yeah, this week of parenting was unique. So, tragic backstory, where I began my villain arc. I had a boxer lab mix that I rescued when I was a single man from the animal shelter. Got her at 4 weeks old, and long story there. I was single and lonely, and I was like, hey, a cute little puppy will help me pick up chicks. I was like, honestly, 30% of my decision making. The other 70% was I'm lonely and I need something to care about me in life. So we got I got a puppy there. Then my wife and I got married. It worked. See, another a trick of the trade. My wife and I got married. A year after we got married, my dog was very vocal whenever she wasn't getting attention. So we were like, "Hey, we need to get her a friend." So we got another dog from the shelter. And this one was a pit bull mix, and she was about 2 years old. And we had both of them together for 8 years. And in, I want to say, October, November of last year, somewhere around that time, we had to put the pit bull mix down. She had gotten some sort of intestinal sickness, and then she was all twisted up and bloating and couldn't eat, couldn't walk. And they said, hey, surgery probably won't do anything for her. And so put her down, which is tough. And then my dog that I'd had for 11 years, we just had to put down in March. And that both of them were tough. You know who gets stuck with the responsibility of putting the family pets down? It's Dad. I was the one who walked in there, carried the dogs, sat with them while they passed, and it was emotionally traumatic both times, especially with the one that I'd had for uh, longer than I'd even been dating my wife. So put her down, and then I was like, okay, I think we're done with dogs. I'm ready to be done with dogs. We have a 2-year-old. That's enough. That's one potty train being in the household is enough. Well, 2 months of peacefulness have happened. And then last week, my wife was like, "Hey, you see this dog? Um, we really want to get it. Do you want to get it?" And I was like, I think the answer's already decided for me, isn't it? We're gonna go see it later today. Okay. So now we have a rat dog. I'm gonna put a picture of the rat dog here in the video. It is a rat dog. Ian, for your imagination's sake, this is a Dachshund Chihuahua mix. They call it a Chiweenie. Her name is Tekka, and actually, Twinkle Tekka is the full name there. And the reason for that is Tekka is kind of a Brazilian nickname they give to short girls. And this dog will never be more than like 7 pounds. So I went from having a solid 90-pound boxer lab mix and a 50, 60-pound pit bull mix. Now we got this little rat dog. It's not just a dachshund mix, it's a long-haired dachshund mix. So it's got the wire crazy looking dog. She's okay. The problem is I don't care. I don't care for the affection of animals. I'm married now, and so I don't need or crave that interaction. It doesn't go both ways. Dogs love me. Babies love me, and I did research on it. Happens to do with partially the tonality of my voice, then also that instinct of like, hey, I don't really need you to just shower me with affection. So because I'm not needy, apparently dogs love that more. I'm the favorite of the household, and I don't know why, and I don't want to be the favorite. I want the dog to like my wife and daughter, and I will take care of the food when I need to. But this lesson in parenting that I did not think I needed. I didn't expect to need. This dog is just so small, and my daughter, who is not a large human being, is a giant compared to this dog. And she cannot go more than 30 seconds without having to pick the dog up and run around and say, "Oh, look at it, it's so cute." It is a cute thing, but she's also strangling the dog. We had to teach her not to pick it up by the neck. Like she's Darth Vadering this dog, picking up the little Cheweenie. And so she's gotten to pick it up by the ribs now, and she'll carry it around. And the dog is thankfully very patient with her and not freaking out. But it is now just another level of terror. Like I don't want my daughter to go through the traumatic life lesson of when I was 2, I crushed a little Chiweenie dog that I loved, and now it's dead, and it's my fault, and I'm an animal murderer. That's going to be a really expensive therapy that I can't handle. So I am extra heightened in my attentions this week, trying to make sure that we keep that dog alive as long as possible.
Well, you know what's going to happen. In 2 or 3 years, Drew is going to be walking around with one of those dog purses, and this little Chiweenie is going to be Drew's best friend. Your
I know that's the
daughter,
stereotypical journey. I know.
your daughter, your wife, they're going to say, "Oh, are you going to the store?" And you're like, "Yes, but I got to bring my friend with me." And you'll be bringing your friend with you.
Let me get my Tekka purse.
Right, exactly.
It's really an affront to my masculinity. It's an unfair attack because we have my wife and my daughter and now this tiny little dog. Like my whole life is being taken over by estrogen. It's too much.
That's what happens when you get married.
It's unfortunate.
You move in with your wife, and then your wife redecorates. Your wife makes the organization in the house. She says, this is what looks good. This is what doesn't look good. You no longer get like race car sheets for your bed. Now it's like, oh, these have to be 1,000 count thread, and they have to look nice, and the bed has to be made, and we have to
Yeah.
check to make sure that food's not expired. Like all of the stuff that make men men, they just kind of take away from us.
As a single man, I had those 3 count threads, and then it was like, what? They go in triple and quadruple digits? What's going on with it?
Like I went several weeks without any sheets on my bed
Oh yeah.
sometime. Like, okay, like whoop, let's just throw the blanket around me and I'm gonna pass out. We're good. I didn't even have a bed frame before I got married. I just had the mattress on the ground. That was fine. You know, that was a man being a man. You know, roughing it in the indoors.
It's the way it should be.
If you can't tell from the sarcasm, I am greatly appreciative that I don't live that life anymore. These are jokes. And
Yes, yes,
if I
honey.
end up
I love
missing,
all the changes you've made. Please, please let me not sleep on the couch tonight.
right, if I end up missing, she probably saw this podcast.
Yeah, this exhibit A. What
Yeah,
about you? Did you
no,
learn anything?
on the dog front, we have two losses, and with the losses, they're not used to little people around them, right? And Natalie is learning how to grab things and still learning spatial awareness and whatnot. So she'll step on the dogs or she'll grab their tails because she doesn't understand that, like petting their fur is different from grabbing their tail. And like they'll snap at her and then she'll cry, and then it is trying to, hey, like I can't yell at the dog for snapping at them because my daughter grabbed their tail, but at the same time it's like she's not strong at all, so like we shouldn't be snapping. So now I am in two different parenting modes. I'm like, well, we can't do that. And then also I have to reprimand the dogs because you guys have to like learn that there's smaller people in the house now. But on a lighter front, yesterday I just realized how there's just moments as a parent where you're like, this is the greatest thing on earth, right? I Natalie was sitting on the couch and I had my back turned towards her, and then I would just quickly turn and look at her and she would just laugh and laugh and laugh, and it was just like a little thing, but she brought so much joy out of it, right? And then 5 hours later, we were on the bed and she had her back towards us, and then she started abruptly just turning to us, knowing that it brought her joy, so she wanted to bring us joy. And it was just so funny because you see the look on her face, and then she's looking for like the reaction of like, oh yeah, this is funny. It's those moments there where you really understand like this is unlike any other experience that you're going to have in life.
Yeah, parenting's pretty awesome. It's really cool to see them start to care about other people. Just on a psychological scale, the more self-absorbed someone is, the more immature they are. And so to watch your own children grow up and start to see that other people exist and then care about those other people and want them to experience joy and happiness. Or you talked about your daughter having empathy after she beat up that dude on the playground last week. um, that's really awesome for me. I love watching that. Parenting is so cool. It gives you a perspective on yourself. A lot of times, like you're watching your kid and watching them grow, but you also see it's really cool to see how she interacts, and do I interact in that childlike manner, the way she's maturing, and these are good things, these are bad things, those are traits that I still have, and oh, I'm behaving like a child in this, or oh, this is a part of a growth journey, and it's cool to see all of that, and then see the mirror of my own problems in my child, but also the growth pattern and the good things in her. I can also say, oh, you know what, that's pretty cool. And she got that either from her mom or me, and that's pretty cool to see those things as well.
Yeah, it is. So I talked a little bit about discipline here, and you talked about teaching your kid not to go full Sith Lord on your dogs. um, I
But
think
affectionate Sith Lord. Overly affectionate Sith Lord.
right, yeah, which is
It's actually the downfall of Anakin Skywalker is that he cared too much about Padme not dying that he almost killed her. Actually, he did kill her. And so that's, I
spoiler
guess,
alert.
oops, I'm sorry.
Jeez.
If you haven't seen a 25-year-old movie by now, or however old it is, you're probably not going to see it.
I do think, hey, Disney, you've had some tough runs with Star Wars lately. If you came up with a Sith Lord that actually loved everybody, but was just kind of like Lenny from Of Mice and Men when it comes to the rabbits, where, oh, I love these, they're crushed. Oh, I love these, they're crushed. That would be something new. That would be a new plot. I'm just saying, I would watch it.
I don't want to get into the whole Disney LucasArts saga. It's discouraging. It really is. I knew exactly what would happen as soon as Disney bought it, and it happened. There's some solid content out there, but there's a lot of garbage. And it's tough, man.
So, let's get into discipline because it is something that, as fathers, it typically falls on us to be the dis that.
Disciplinarian.
Yes,
It's
there we
even a hard
go.
word to say. It's hard to do,
Is
hard to say.
it breaks our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah, not fun or easy for me. I think one of the biggest things is to make sure when you're disciplining your child, it's you're not angry at them. It's disciplining out of I'm trying to protect you from this behavior that can cause great harm to you, or I'm trying to protect you from this bad thing that you were like touching the oven or something. I'm trying to protect you from that. I'm trying to protect you from yourself. I'm trying to protect you from other people. And so out of everything for me when I'm disciplining it, it's out of a heart of love and protection for my daughter. And I can be frustrated at times, but I want to make sure that that is not driving the discipline. When it comes to my daughter, intellectually, I know the right things to do, the right ways to behave, but the intellect and the actions don't always connect. And I have this battle within me where my daughter is mentally developing cognitive abilities and she's growing and maturing and learning. And I don't know what she understands and what she doesn't understand yet. Her speech is becoming better and better. So we're able to communicate, obviously on a very low level, but we're starting to be able to communicate. And in that communication, I'm starting to be able to understand what she is understanding. And so that helps me know to discipline in certain areas a little bit better. I'm terrified of the two extremes. One extreme, you create a spoiled little brat that is entitled and does everything. No one can tell her otherwise. The other extreme is that you're overbearing and abusive and you create this insecure person who's scared to do anything in life because she might get punished for it. And so that is a terrifying balance. And I am not the master of that yet. By the time we have our 27th child, I may have figured it out.
Yeah. My philosophy is pretty similar. I think that there's a lot of good that you can get from the progressive parenting that we've seen. The issue is sometimes they take it too far. Kids need to be taught. Kids need guidance. You can't just let your kids do whatever they want to do. With that being said, when you do tell them, hey, we can't do this, you have to explain to them this is why we can't do this. And I understand at a very young age, they may not even understand those words, but if you are setting that example, even when they can't talk yet, it ends up being easier to do that as they grow and develop, because that's a pattern that they learn. Like, okay, like when I get in trouble, we have a talk, we talk things out, and we move forward. Right. But you
Is
still,
disciplining the habits in yourself so that you can continue to do that as they grow. The habits that you instilled in yourself earlier on can carry on to when they're actually going to be best received and most valuable.
right. And it's not allowing yourself to get caught up in the emotion, because there's so many things that throughout the day you're like, hey, I need to try to get this done. I need to get this going through, you know, this is important and whatnot. Your little kids don't know any of that. They don't know the mechanisms of what's going on in life. They are just learning what life is. So they'll do things, and in the back of your head, you're like really, we're doing this now, right when I needed to do this, or, you know.
Yeah.
But just taking a step back and realizing, like you said, their mind is developing, their cognitive abilities are developing, and they're learning how to be empathetic. They're learning how to see the world through multiple lenses rather than just their own. And they're learning to actually have that thought process instead of, ooh, great, and then go, right? So just taking a step back and realizing, okay, great. But there are also times, like the other day, I was pulling something out of the oven and Natalie came running through and she wanted to like, oh, like let me go in the oven and help you. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Picked her up, moved her, and put her in her little playpen. And I was like, no, we do not touch hot food. And then I gave her the oven mitt, and I said, you know, and I put it on her, and then I moved her to the oven afterwards so that she could understand, oh, okay, like we use an oven mitt here. She may, you know, she still doesn't know what like hot is or that it's dangerous, but at least she understands, like, okay, like if I'm going to touch this, I need this, right? So again,
So,
you can't
practically
let your,
speaking,
yeah.
how do you deal with discipline? Is there a physical aspect to it, or is it just you're talking, or do you incorporate timeout, or what do you do on a practical level?
Yeah,
And if you
so
say something that gets us canceled first, then I can say whatever I want to say after, and it's okay.
yeah. So I'm not at the like, Natalie hasn't developed to a point where I think that physical anything is good at all or makes sense. I would imagine that, you know, as the kids get older, you know, just like a swift swat on the butt maybe like effective in the moment, but that hasn't been even a thought process of mine at this point. One, like she doesn't know what's going on. Me just like smacking her for like that's not going to teach her discipline. That's not going to teach her anything else. Like you do that because you want them to have like this negative like experience when they do something wrong. A lot of the times when I'm acting swiftly, it's because it's in her best safety, because if she does something, she's going to have a negative experience with that. So I don't also want to incorporate another negative experience to counteract a different negative experience, if that makes sense.
I got you.
So yeah, so I think having time out is important. I think also just letting them cry it out. You know, sometimes you know, they are fussy and everything else, and they're not listening. And it's like, okay, if you want to act like this, you can act like this in this specific, you know, here, I'll put you in the playpen. If you want to cry and everything else, cry for a little bit. They typically cry it out, and then they're good to go. Right. So that's kind of where I am, practicality wise. But again, these things change as their brains develop, as how they test boundaries develop as well, because we know as they grow up they're going to say, what can I get away with, right? Like that's just human nature. Oh, what can I get away with here? What can I get away with? And that's why it is important to, while we do want to have a parenting style that isn't abusive, that doesn't breed this negativity of I can't make a mistake or the world is going to crash, we still can't let them have no boundaries at all and, run and do whatever they want. We're still the adults in the room.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of biblical principles to weigh in the balance when it comes to discipline. Have spare the rod, spoil the child. Also, fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath. In other words, pushing them or allowing them to sinful behavior and sinful lifestyles. And then, of course, from the child's perspective, there's a lot. Honor your father and mother, that it may be well with you, that your days may be long upon the earth. And there's also, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Lots of passages talking about parenting and discipline and how it works. For us, when it comes to our daughter, actually, I'll say this first of all. And this is probably one of those videos we'll look back on and say, man, that was just with one little kid. We were so foolish back then. Now we have 100 children. What are we going to do? Like, we know so much more now than we do. So I get that perspective. We're going to grow into our parenting just like our children are growing into who they are. I never ascribed to the idea that a single type of discipline is perfect for every child. I think every child is unique. And so you have to know your children and understand how you can best work with them. When it comes to Isabella, if we see like willful acts of rebellion, and she's getting to that, she's in the terrible twos. It's a cliche for a reason. When she gets to that stage where she's clearly defying us, we know she knows what she's supposed to do. And like the other day, my wife told her no on something, and she went back and she slapped my wife's face. She went to punch her, and then she open-handed slapped her, and then Ty did what she should have done. She slapped her on the hand right there, said, "No, don't do that." And then Isabella went. So as she is clearly understanding things, we are incorporating things like a little swat to the bum or a slap on the wrist. But timeout has been really effective for her. Our daughter is the kind that she is 100 miles an hour on anything she does. And she loves life. She loves whatever she's doing in the moment. She loves it or hates it more than any human being has ever loved or hated anything in the world. And when she is in timeout, that is probably the harshest thing a human being could ever do to any human ever. She does really well at understanding, okay, I've been bad. I need to sit here, and she'll cry and she'll be like, "Can I be done yet?" That kind of thing a lot. But it's been a really effective tool in certain scenarios. It's not possible. We're in Walmart. What are we going to do? All right, you have to go to timeout in the fabric aisle and sit there and look at the fabric and do nothing else. Like, that's not going to happen. So sometimes it's just a verbal warning. Sometimes it's a little swat on the hand or something like that. Again, if you're not disciplining in anger, you can control your emotions, and so you won't go overboard. If you can remain present, then hey, this is not an adult I'm disciplining. This is a very tiny little human being. And so I have to treat it in proportion to her understanding and in proportion to her age and cognitive ability and all of that. And so we're we want to be very careful with that. There have been some, in the conservative Christian world, there have been some really disgusting, it's abuse, but physical discipline tactics used on infants even. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up like blanket training and stuff like that. It's gross. These are precious children, and they are great treasure, we're highly favored to be parents of our children. God has blessed us immensely, and it's not something that we ought to take and treat like a robot. And from infancy onward, like the first thing you need is discipline. No, they need love, and they need nurture and admonition in the Lord. And so we need to be very careful with all of this. Make sure that everything is out of love and that you're present. If you're in a mental space where you can't think clearly and fully assess the situation, think through it from her perspective or your daughter's perspective or child's perspective, and then what's actually happening and the actual weight of the offense, then you need to take a beat, step back, breathe, clear your head, and then come back to the situation, assess, and then discipline accordingly. A lot of parenting, man, it comes from having to grow up yourself and be mature yourself. You got to be 1,000 levels ahead of where your children are. Because if you're not the right person, you're not going to raise the right people. You have to be the best you can be first, and then help your kids to grow up. That's my philosophy on it.
I think the old saying hurt people really reigns true. I have heard a lot of stories of people who were, abused either growing up or they were abused in a specific setting. And when they had the power, they took it as okay, now it's my turn to be in control. Now it's my turn to be able to do, and that does come from immaturity. That does come from not realizing,
100%.
hey, the reason why I feel like I need to be in control is because these things were so damaging to me. And if I love my daughter, if I love my son, if I love my children, why would I do something that I know was so damaging to me, to them? You just have to stop the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from just developing yourself, prayer, talking with God, therapy, being able to work through these things so that you don't cast this onto your children, because you didn't choose who your parents were. You weren't able to choose how they disciplined you or the environment that they raised you in, but you have that choice for your kids. So if you grew up in a situation where you're like, this was terrible, don't do that for them. This isn't, you don't get you don't get brownie points, or you don't get like a new look on life because you're doing the same things that were accosted to you that you're accosting on your children. You don't look back and say, oh, I understand why my parents did this. No, you're still hurt. You still in the core of you are wondering, why would my parents do this to me? And now your kids are looking at you the exact same way. And that is never the thing that we want our kids to view when they view us. Not, why are they doing this to me, but thank you for being in my life. Thank you for guiding me, for your guidance, for parenting me, right? That should be the outcome that you want from your children. They should be thankful. They should be so blessed to have you as parents, because you did things in accordance to the Lord, but also you did things in a way that are going to prepare them to be successful. And we're going to make mistakes along the way. Nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. If you see on social media and you're like, oh man, those guys are perfect parents. They're always out doing stuff. They're always out. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. We're all going to make mistakes. But again, this goes back to what I said last week. We can't focus on who's right. We have to focus on what is right. And when we're in the wrong, we have to take that accountability and say, hey, I was in the wrong. This isn't right. Let me change that. Because your kids aren't going to be able to tell you to change that. One, if you're abusing them, they're going to be too scared to speak up. But two, they haven't developed cognitively yet. They don't understand that there's so many different ways of life out there. They've only seen your way of life. So how are they going to speak up? This is something that you have to take upon yourself and realize this is not what I want for my kids. This is not what I want for my family. This is not what I want for my lineage, because just you are bringing this trauma from your parents. They're probably bringing that from their parents, right? This is a lineage thing of things that are happening, and the great thing is you have the opportunity to break that. You have the opportunity to say, 3, 4, 5 generations from now, I know that my my offspring, my bloodline, treat their kids well, are in accordance to the Lord, and are doing the things that are going to breed healthy adults. And I think that's great that we have that power.
I know the older I get, more I realize that self-awareness is a superpower. And the good news is everyone can have it. All you got to do is ask questions, uncomfortable questions. Why am I the way that I am? Why do I do that? Why do I have this value? Why do I think this way? Why, when someone says this, do I react this way? Or why, when my child does this minor irritating thing to me, do I blow up and react in an incredulous manner? So I need to step back as Drew. I need to step back, reevaluate everything that I do. And a lot of people don't want to do that because one, it's uncomfortable, and two, because it's work. It's hard work. And it's hard work to try to cut through the baloney in your mind. All the self idealization that you have, and then turn that into self awareness. You have to cut through your blind spots and say, why am I this way? What makes me think this way or react this way? And when you start to understand these things, then you can ask the question, well, is that really worth the reaction that I'm giving to it? Is my behavior actually good, or my reasoning for the behavior actually good, or does it just make me feel good because of something that I had happen in my past or whatever? You have to constantly be looking at yourself so that you can know how to handle and treat people better. You don't want to continue to be the worst form of you. You want to get better and grow so that you can be better for others and make a better impact on others. It's it's unfortunately rare in society that people will take a step back and self-evaluate, but it needs to happen 100% across the board. We all need to step back, understand who we are, why we are the way that we are, and then move forward.
Yeah, I agree. These are important things that we need to figure out, especially as men, because millennial men, we've been told a lot, right? We've been told, hey, this is what masculinity is. This is what toxic masculinity is. This is how you need to be a feminist, and this is how you need to, but at the end of the day, you have to be self-aware to understand, like, I have to put myself in the best position to be a protector, to be a provider, and then to be the navigator for my family. And that may look different. I'm not saying, hey, the man needs to make the most amount of money, or the man needs to have, like, this or that. What I'm saying is in your own family dynamic, there are going to be things that only you can provide to that family dynamic. You have to own that. There are going to be things that only you can protect in that family dynamic. You have to own that, right? There's going to be lessons that your family can only learn from you. You have to be in the position to be able to teach them when those lessons come up. And that's really what being a man is. A man isn't benching 300 pounds. I've done that before. It's really cool, but that doesn't make a man, right? A man isn't, having a bunch of guns and being able to protect his family by shooting people. It can be, but that's not what a man is. A man is, given a certain situation, how are you going to adapt and be accountable so that you can do the things that you need to do for your family. And
Bro,
at the end of, yeah,
exercise your mind, not your tries.
well, exercise your tries too. Exercise everything, exercise your wife's patience,
Oh,
I
yeah.
do that very well.
I'm very good at that. I also exercise her embarrassment threshold a lot in public settings. That's my favorite exercise.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Yesterday we were out eating, and whenever there's like a crash at the house or like somebody drops something, my wife will like high pitch like squeal, just funny. She'll go. But we were out eating, and one of the waitresses just dropped something and it broke, and my reaction, I just went "Ah," right, and she looks at me and she's just dying. She's like, "That is so stupid," and I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, you do it all the time. She's like, yeah, but when it's out in public, it's so much, it's so different. But yeah, it was
That's awesome.
hilarious.
Yeah, I had a close call this week. Not necessarily on the embarrassment. I was just thinking of stories that happened. So I'm a business owner, pressure washer. There was a scenario where I had to get up on a ladder to go up to a deck up above so I could clean up there because the only access was within the house and you don't want to track all that through. So it's a 20-foot ladder and I fell off the ladder, but thank goodness I was only on the first step. It's my first dad joke of the day.
Yeah, I was about to be like, oh, geez, I'm gonna have to find another co-host if you keep falling off ladders. But no, it's good that it was only the first step there.
Yeah.
But
So
that also that does remind me of one of my dad jokes because I had to go to the doctor this week, and I went in and I said, doctor, you got to help me. I think I broke my arm in two places. And then the doctor says, well, don't go back to those two places.
well, Ian, let me ask you. Do you know what the difference between curtain and toilet paper is?
What's the difference?
Oh, so that was you? Yeah.
You got me there. You got me. All right. I actually had to go see the doctor a lot this week.
Okay.
So,
Expensive week.
I went to the doctor. I said, doctor, you got to help me. My wife thinks she's a refrigerator. And the doctor says, well, what's the problem with that? And I said, well, the issue is she sleeps with her mouth open and the light keeps me on. Because she thinks she's a refrigerator. So if her mouth is open, that's like the refrigerator door being open, and the light comes on the refrigerator door.
Oh, it's all painful. It really is. All the dad jokes. So, Ian, I don't have any more. I'm trying to keep these limited so that we can extend the lifespan of the dad joke segment for infinity. But you have anything else?
Oh, I mean, I could go forever, so we'll hold off. But yeah, no, it's great.
So then that concludes our first long form podcast episode. We need to know what you all think about this format. Again, we're going to break these into separate segments throughout the week as well. So you can just have the portion, if you only want one portion of the podcast, you can listen to just that or get everything all at once and sit in your car for hours and hours on end listening to the sultry sounds of our voices.
And hey, we even did a costume change for you, a wardrobe change in the middle of this. I don't
What are
know
you
if you
talking
guys,
about?
I don't know if you guys figured that out yet, but yeah.
No, this is the exact same thing we've been wearing this whole time. I don't know what you mean.